It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day. So join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
I got no idea and all those experiences going into the next game. I think we'll practice well today. I think we'll play well tomorrow. I really do. That's my expectation. This team is fun to be around. It's frustrating, but it's fun.
I challenged them that we need to keep them around 50. If they got to 50 quickly in the second half, we probably weren't going to win the game. And to my guys' credit, I thought they really took that to heart. I thought we were worrying too much about our offense in the first half and missed shots, and knew that it would have to be a little bit more defensive, gritty game to win, and I thought we did that.
We're able to play the way we need to play and play our players. We can give you a good game. We can give you a good game. You can see a great game. When we have to play people that don't play 20, 30 minutes in our program, that's hard. That's really hard for a top team in the country. And not even our top player, our post players, our starting post players play half a game.
You do not want to piss off Dawn Staley, all right?
Nope.
That is one person you don't want on your bad side, I would say. Listen, SEC officials, I didn't see any of the game.
I did.
Well, M-I-Z.
I ain't saying it.
Come on, man. You've been just surrounded by your alma mater here in the last week or so.
We've had a lot of Mizzou stuff involving USC this week.
But, I mean, really, the Mizzou women's basketball team, are they a bunch of dirtbags? I mean, it sounded like, from what I've read,
I will tell you this.
Elbows to the mouth and
they do
knees to the and other things going on, dragging people to the ground. What's going on with Missouri basketball?
I've seen two of the players on that team, Sophie Cunningham and Sierra Porter, Michael Porter's sister. I've seen them play for better part of 9 years. I saw them win 4 state championships in Columbia, and then I've seen them play 3 years in Columbia with the Tigers. They don't play typically the way that a women's basketball team would play. Mm-hmm. And I will also say this, as someone who's called women's basketball at the Division I women's college basketball level, the way that game is played, you could call a foul on every possession. Now, most of the time, officials don't. In this particular contest, they chose to. And I found it rather curious that 2 of the 3 officials that called the game last year that Dawn had problems with, that there was the last game that South Carolina lost in the conference, also officiated this contest. So I found that rather curious. And I think that Dawn's got a beef. I think she's got a real beef. And Sophie, she plays like a linebacker. She played football in high school. She was a kicker. And she
played football?
Yeah, she was a kicker. She was a kicker for Rockbridge. I'm telling you, she is the best female athlete I've seen play at any level. She's just relentless.
Yeah.
But I will say she does play at a level where you love her if she's on your team, and if you're on the other team, you're trying to figure out how to get past her, get inside her head.
So, a loss for the USC women on the road at Missouri. Missouri beat them last year, too.
They did. And they get them one more time here in South Carolina.
And that's going to be the old grudge match. To steal a line from Lefty Drizel, I'll send a message to the Missouri women's basketball team. We cannot promise you complete protection when you come to Columbia, South Carolina.
I think the Gamecocks win that one by 10 to 15.
We cannot promise you safety when you come here after that performance the other day. Hey, you know what tonight is? It's the last college football game of the year at any level, anywhere, any place.
Yes.
So here we go. Alabama, Georgia, all SEC. It's the Crimson Tide's favored by 3. I'm taking Alabama. I'm laying the points. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm influenced. I'm one of these people. I'm influenced by what I last saw. I just rewatched the Clemson-Alabama game over the weekend just to make sure what I saw was what I saw. And, boy, Alabama, they brought the anger.
Yeah.
They really brought the anger on Clemson. And so, not to focus on Clemson here, to talk about Alabama, they're going to really bring the anger tonight, I think, against Georgia. I expect them to can't say shut down that running game, but maybe contain that running game. I don't think you're going to see Michelle and Chubb just running crazy against this Alabama defense. And so, with all that being said, Alabama will produce enough offense, and I think Alabama wins. I think they cover the spread.
Well, you brought so much anger in this game. Can they bring it twice? That's the question, because the want to is there. The want to is there. Can they do it? That is a key. And at some point, a Saban assistant will bury their mentor. Is the night tonight. He can't continue to be undefeated, Will, against his former assistant.
You know, I think that Saban, this goes back to something that we neglected to really focus on going into the Alabama-Clemson game. Is not only is Nick Saban the best preparing coach in all of college football, he might be the best preparing coach in all of sports. And I know that he made all of these comments about we don't have enough time to recover. I know that Anthony Jennings is not going to play, which should be a negative for Alabama. But when it comes down to it, they had a scout on Georgia. They had the full month of scout on Georgia. They have a scout on the game that they played against Oklahoma. Nick Saban's going to have the elixir in my mind, and I think that he will have what it takes to provide the kind of game plan against the Bulldogs that he needs to. And despite the fact that it seemed that Clemson was able to at least hamper them defensively with what Alabama was trying on offense, I think Alabama will have a better idea with what they want to do offensively against a Georgia team that I don't think their defense is nearly as strong as what Clemson brought to the table. Clemson allowed about 3.2 yards per play, and Alabama still put up 24 points. Now, Clemson helped them out with a pick six and a short field on the other pick from Kelly Bryant. In my mind, I think a lot of those kinds of plays could happen again for Alabama, and it always just seems to kind of turn up in their favor with the exception of one game last year.
The phone number 800-956-7266. So what is your pick tonight? Alabama or Georgia? 800-956-7266. Our email, talkback@sportstalksc.com. Got a lot of email about the promotion of Brian McClendon to OC at USC. We'll share some of that with you. And on Twitter, we are at SportsTalkSC, at SportsTalkSC. Make sure you sign up and follow us on Twitter. We will have some recruiting for you, plus basketball over the weekend. I was at USC Vandy. A couple of comments on that. Looked more like a Frank Martin basketball team. They probably had more skin burns than they had assists.
Right.
And they played very physical. You just never know what's going to happen during a season. But Henson brought a physicality to the lineup.
Yeah.
And you know what? Little old Jason Cudd coming along. I mean, you know, if you can get 10, 12 minutes of good play out of him, that is a bonus. But the key, 31 minutes for Silva on the court.
Yes.
No
you
fouls.
can keep him on the court for 30-plus minutes. He can be against that particular lineup. It was a good matchup size-wise for him. He could do his thing in the paint. The Gamecocks scored a lot of points in the paint. That's where they've got to win. As Martin said today, they get it in the paint and they can score, they can win games.
And Clemson up to number 19 in the polls. I was there for their contest against Louisville. They went to overtime against them. And I tell you what, guys, this group, I don't know if you can play them 30, 40 minutes a game like the four starters are playing right now, but that group is about as good as I've seen right now in the country. And I think they're finding their identity.
I think they can win the national championship?
I'm not saying they can win the national championship, but I think these next four games can really tell the story for them because they got to go play an NC State team that beat Duke. They got to play North Carolina next week. They have a ranked Miami team and a ranked Notre Dame team. If they can get through these next four games at 3-1 or greater, I think they're a legit team.
I think they're a legit team anyway, but I will tell you this, Will. Every team goes through a hiccup. We've seen Florida do it, and they came out on the other side. Clemson is yet to hit theirs, but I think they have the veteran guards that when they hit a hiccup, maybe a 2-game losing streak, they'll come out on the other side tougher. And Dante Grantham is a world of difference, and his turnaround with those veteran guards have really fueled this team. And I see them. I see an upset. I see Chapel Hill. I see the conquering of Chapel Hill. I'm going to ride that right now.
Even if they go 2-2, I'd still consider it a success.
Okay, we'll get to your phone calls when we come back here on Sports Talk.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266 is our phone number to your calls in just a moment. Update a couple of things over the weekend. Yesterday, a couple of Clemson Tigers announced that they're leaving, Ray McLeod and Van Smith. You know, going back and looking over McLeod's numbers, I was shocked to realize that
They weren't that good.
in his career,
Yeah.
how few touchdowns he scored for Clemson. I thought he was had a lot more touchdowns to his credit than what he actually did.
I think similar to the vein of a guy like a Hayden Hurst, probably not utilized fully in the offense that he was in. I think that there were a lot of other weapons that he kind of fell behind in the pecking order for Clemson. So I think a lot of that necessarily wasn't his fault, but that's a guy who has upside potential for the next level. And, you know, like you said, the numbers won't bear it out from what his collegiate numbers were, but he's a guy that will test well, I think, in the combine.
Yeah, he's a guy who will be working to get his second contract is when he could break the bank.
Yeah, he certainly has the speed and the moves, and in the right offense can do a lot of things. And Van Smith also heading to the NFL a year early. Some other Tigers are still pondering what to do. They've gotten the recommendations back from the NFL people. They've gotten their grades and all that kind of stuff. Now they're just trying to figure out what they want to do.
Wondering why the wait. I mean, maybe there's some trepidation from some guys, like maybe a Wilkins or a Mitch Hyatt. I know that we already heard from Taylor Hearn earlier before the bowl game. But in my mind, I'm not saying that necessarily them waiting provides any particular positivity for Clemson. But, I mean, they could have stood to lose a lot of guys. And the fact that we might not have heard from them right now could maybe mean that they're going out after another run. Who knows?
People don't leave Clemson early.
Final FCS polls, of course, North Dakota State #1, having won it on the field. By the coaches, Wofford is 7, Furman is 20. And by the media types, the regular FCS poll, Wofford finished 6th and Furman finished 19th. And the basketball polls this week, Will alluded to Clemson. By the AP, the Tigers are number 19 this week, moved up 6 spots. Villanova is 1, followed by West Virginia, Michigan State, and Wichita State. I mean, where are Duke and where are North Carolina?
1 and 2
Now,
in the
Duke
conference.
is 7. Duke is 7. North Carolina is down to number 20 by the AP. By the coaches, Clemson is 17, and Villanova is number 1. What a bloody weekend it was for the top teams in college basketball.
NC State beating Duke did a lot to help Clemson RPI-wise, too. They're now up to number 5 in the ratings percentage index, which takes into account all the strength of schedule and fancy stat stuff that people always go about.
I mean, look at Kentucky down here at 21 and Arizona, some preseason favorites by some to win it all. Number 17, Kansas is 12. They've all suffered their ups and downs so far this year. So, looking forward to this week of basketball. USC at Alabama tomorrow night. Clemson on Thursday night, 9:00 prime time at NC State. NC State coming off that win over Duke. Then Clemson's got to turn around 2 days later and host Miami. And then South Carolina on Saturday plays at Georgia. So South Carolina basketball is going to get both football finalists this week.
Frank was angry. He said that he thought that he made somebody mad at the conference office as a result of having to play those guys. But, you know, sticking on the SEC, that's a league that continues to get a lot of positive pub. They did their homework and did their business in November and December. We'll see what they do against the Big 12 and the SEC Big 12 Challenge. But that's a league now. I mean, people were saying before the season that they could get 6, 7, 8 teams into the tournament. That's not a joke anymore.
And Georgia looked real good on Saturday. And South Carolina grabs a tiger by the tail, not Clemson, but that Texas Tech team looks good too.
The Gamecocks right now, I mean, they are just totally relying on their defense. They are second in the SEC in defense, scoring defense, but they are next to last in scoring offense. They are next to last in free throw percentage. They are next to last in field goal percentage, but they are 6th in field goal percentage defense. So their defense is carrying them. They can't really shoot a lick. They're near the bottom in 3-point field goal percentage. Their rebounding and their defense is what's going to carry this team any particular difference it might go.
You could say the same for Clemson on the defensive side. I mean, they're middle of the pack in adjusted offense, but as far as their adjusted defense goes, which again takes into advantage, the free throw and field goal percentage stuff like that, kind of the luck factor, 10th in the country according to Ken Pom.
And it depends on where your energy is as far as your coaching staff is concerned. Now I know they had the ultimate rejecter in Patrick Ewing, but the year that Georgetown won the national championship, they shot less than 40%.
Here's something USC's got to improve into. They are dead last in the SEC in assist to turnover ratio. They've had 15 more turnovers than assists. And this is where they're hurting at point guard.
You mentioned Duke, same metric that I was told of with Clemson. First in the country in adjusted offense, 108th in adjusted defense. They cannot play a lick.
And that's where the variety of point guards is gone astray, because at some point your point guard has to have rest. Everybody calls P.J. Dozier the point guard at South Carolina, but a lot of times that point responsibilities went to Sindarius Thornwell, so he got a rest on the court. So in essence, you had 2 point guards on the floor at the same time.
All right, to the phones we go, 800-956-7266. Who do you like tonight? Let's see. What are you going to watch? The Homer's telecast, the Voices, the Coach's Film Room, the Command Center. I'm going to watch the Spanish language broadcast to kind of sharpen up my Espanol.
I want to really look at the game, just the game. But I am enticed to go to the coach's room. Those guys teach me stuff when I'm looking at that.
I'm gonna watch Feinbaum's channel just because I want to hear some of those inbred Alabama people go crazy.
Let's go to Barry in Fort Mill. First up on the week. Hello, Barry. Welcome into Sports Talk.
Hello, Phil. How y'all doing tonight?
Good, Barry. How are you?
Oh, pretty well. I'm not interested in talking about football tonight. I'm interested in talking about that travesty of a basketball game yesterday afternoon. I can take a loss just as well as anybody else, but that game was a complete travesty. And I support Dawn Staley 100%. I think she was absolutely right in coming out and standing up for her team. She's one of the finest people and one of the finest basketball players that ever lived. But the other thing about it is, how in the hell does the best player in the country, Aja Wilson, and a starting forward pick up 2 fouls apiece in less than 3 minutes on the other side of the court? Hadn't even got the ball up into their court or anything. And that girl, that number 3,
there's things like taunting and football and stuff like that. And she shook her big ass around that whole Coliseum yesterday, running up and getting up in people's face and everything, headbutting people, slapped the Asia there in the mouth and everything, knocked her down and everything. And as far as the NCAA,
hang on a second. Let me ask Will, since he's the expert, how big is that backside that he's talking about in terms of inches across? Any idea? Has that been measured?
I'm not going there.
Go ahead, Barry.
Okay. I lost my train of thought.
Didn't mean to throw you off your game there.
That's okay. But there you got 2 starting players, one of the best players in the country. Aja didn't play but 19 minutes in that game and everything. But I'm just sick of all this stuff about basketball, just like Taya Cooper. She's been sitting and waiting on the NCAA to rule on their case. There was a girl that transferred into Notre Dame. They walked her right in. Just walked right in. Just might as well laid out a red carpet and rolled her in there. But Taya Cooper, can't get to play for South Carolina.
It's hard to. I mean, it's easy to think that maybe the NCAA has got something in for South Carolina.
Oh, come on!
I'm just saying.
Based on what?
Maybe they don't like Dawn. Maybe Dawn is maybe Dawn upset somebody in Indianapolis.
Dawn is the face of women's basketball.
If she's the face of women's basketball, why is Aja Wilson only playing 19 minutes in Missouri?
People say Gino, but Dawn is not only an Olympic champion as a player, she's the Olympic coach now.
I think Dawn is the face.
She's a national champion coach.
Gino is the cigarette man, just like the cigarette man was in.
Let's get past the conspiracy theory now, people. Okay.
I'm just saying, it seemed odd. It seemed odd. The officiating seemed odd. I agree with him.
We'll be right back. Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266, National Championship game. Later tonight in Atlanta, if you weren't aware, Alabama and Georgia. Who's your pick? I think we got 2 picks for Alabama here and 1 for Georgia. Is that what I'm hearing?
Who said Georgia?
I thought one of you picked Georgia.
I have Alabama.
No.
We all picked Alabama.
Yes.
Scary thought. 800-956-7266.
I was about to say, don't put words in my mouth now.
Our poll question on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, for this week is your reaction to Brian McClendon being named the new offensive coordinator at USC. And the options are great hire of a promising offensive mind.
That's pro.
It's a risk because he has no track record.
That's me.
Big mistake. Should have hired a proven coordinator.
That's you.
And then an other. I left the other in there for some reason.
You're putting some words in your mouth.
53% of the respondents so far say great hire. 31% say it's a risk. 13% say big mistake. And then in the other category, what you can write in your own thoughts, one person wrote, ha, 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 ha. 2 said, wait and see. Another said, feel pretty good about it. Another wrote, Jake, coach's boy, whatever that means.
Whoa.
Easy.
Well, I wasn't here Friday, Corn, and
You were missed.
Yeah, I was talking to Will about this, and I thought Muschamp sat around and said, look, at Florida, I said, Charlie Weiss, hoo-hoo, great hire. No.
What do you say?
Woo-hoo! Great
Pretty good.
hire.
Mhm.
No. Then, that didn't work. I tell you what, great offensive coordinator, look good, plays a bit against big team success. Brett Peace, Boise State, great hire. Woo-hoo!
Now, where'd he go after his 1 year? Did he get
I have
was he fired or did he go somewhere else?
Brent Peace?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Peace. I give you peace and love.
But then look, the third
See if you
hire.
can find that out.
The third hire.
He went to Washington.
The third hire was.
And then he became the OC at UTEP.
The third hire was Kurt Roper, who was a disciple of David Cutcliffe.
Mm-hmm.
As Kurt Roper's brother, does David Cutcliffe's offense still work? Answer, bingo, it still does. Didn't work in Florida. But guess what? We know Muschamp knows defensive football. He hired a young and up-and-comer for defensive coordinator. Nobody said anything. Dan Quinn. Oh, where is he? Oh, head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. DJ Durkin came behind him. Young up-and-comer, head coach at Maryland. Maybe what I did with my defense, I should have did with my offense and get a young up-and-comer. But I guess what? The ace in the hole, the ace in this boot is hiring the quarterback coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a big key to both of those hires. And I think it was a great tandem.
They work well together.
Bingo.
And the only problem that I have is the fact that if this doesn't work, I don't want to put words in Ray Tanner's mouth, but I don't see how you let him hire another offensive coordinator if you can't get this one right. So if
those three I mentioned, who were very productive and didn't work, what I'm trying to tell you is every hire is a chance.
I understand that. But here's the issue. Much of survival in college football, especially at the head coaching position, is risk management. And I said this on Friday. And the fact of the matter is, if you hire somebody with a pedigree, and if you hire somebody that is a, quote, defensible hire, he can go back and say, look, I had this guy, he's got numbers. And you could say, oh, well, there's a disconnect between this guy's numbers and the personnel. If you go off of this hire with a guy who has no pedigree outside of an interim coaching job at Georgia and an interim coaching job here at South Carolina, that's the only pedigree we have to go off of. And to be brutally honest, what he saw in the bowl game wasn't exactly that impressive.
It was because you were playing a strong defense and you adjusted in the second half. That's a bigger test than what you said last year when they played a Swiss cheese defense in South Florida.
All I'm saying is you go back and you see.
You do not hire to protect your behind.
Oh, of course you do.
You hired it for success.
I hired to protect my behind because my behind is what's going to get me paid at the end of the day. And if I have no behind by the end of the day, then guess what? I'm out of a job.
Go get the behind of the girl at Missouri.
Stop it.
So anyway,
stop it.
We're going to have to wait and see. It is, despite what Muschamp said, it is a bit of a gamble because his history with offensive coordinators is horrible. It just hasn't worked for whatever reason.
But they weren't young.
And I know you don't like me using this word, but he's either misguided or lying if he doesn't think it's a gamble.
The previous poll question we had that just left our front page was a chance for you to vote for the State Player of the Year. We had over 1,300 votes. Sky Moore is now recognized by Sports Talk listeners and followers as the State Player of the Year. 762 votes, or 55.95%. Kelly Bryant finished second with 19.8%. Jake Bentley finished third with 12.04%. So congratulations to Sky Moore. We reward you. Well, you being still an amateur, we can't give you anything. If you were professional, we'd give you a $10,000 bonus check. But
Dorian O'Daniel robbed, by the way. Robbed.
Oh, was he?
He wasn't among the finalists.
I think probably when you look at it, whoever voted for Sky Moore.
How do we give Sky? We give Sky one of those Deshaun Watson footballs that we have.
That's sure. I'm sure he'd love
he
that.
could take it and stick pins in it.
The
voodoo doll.
I guess the chip for Sky Moore is the fact is he literally stuck his neck out.
Yeah.
After neck surgery.
He was a great football player.
After neck surgery, I'm not so certain I hit a football field again.
From day one, he was a baller in South Carolina.
I'd tell you right now, I wouldn't have come back if I was him. I would have probably tried my luck at the NFL, which is why, again, I don't begrudge any of these guys who leave early, because if you have the opportunity to make money at the next level, I try and make it. Now, you're taking a big risk, a big gamble, bro.
Yes.
Gamble
yes.
on coming back and possibly injuring yourself further before you're able to make any money. But guess what? He made himself some more money by this year's performance.
I think he did. I mean, and I've seen some write-ups about him saying, mid to late rounds, and I'm a little surprised by that. I would think, personally, and I'm no expert on the NFL talent, but I would think third or fourth round if you're looking for somebody who can be that hybrid linebacker type who can swing into coverage. You can use him a variety of different ways. And isn't he going to play in the Senior Bowl? He's in one of the All-Star Bowl games.
I think he is.
He'll have a chance to show people what he could do. I mean, 14 interceptions as a linebacker in your career, leading your team in tackles all 4 years you played. That's a heck of a combination.
He's a bit undersized for a linebacker at the NFL level, especially because of what they're asking you to do. There really aren't that many outside linebackers anymore in the National Football League because of the fact that everybody basically runs spread. So he would probably have to gain some weight to probably play an inside linebacker position in that regard. But I think he has a place on a team, whether it's in special teams or whether it's if he bulks up a little bit more to be an inside linebacker. Again, we're seeing a lot of these guys who have success at the college level who don't have a position at the NFL level, especially on the defensive side of the football. So he needs to necessarily get himself a little bit more on the interior.
You only need one team that falls in love with you. Last year, a guy he recruited to Florida, Dan Quinn, saw Keanu Neal. Everybody said you reached. You reached for that guy because you saw him in college, you recruited him, and now he's one of the best strong safeties in the NFL because one guy saw him enough to believe in him. Somebody has to know that with his smarts, this guy can play the pass, which you have to do at the linebacker level. The only worry they would have would be, in my mind, the injury history with the neck. If that's clarified, I could see him going high.
Well, I mean,
as a
good gracious,
round.
he just played 13 games in 8 games in the SEC, Michigan, Clemson. I mean, I know the NFL's tougher and stronger. I think he's proven the neck is fine.
I see him going as high as the second round. I really do.
I would not be surprised. Okay, 800-956-7266. What do you think about tonight's game? What about the basketball over the weekend and what's ahead? We'll continue in a moment.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Okay, we're back with you, Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network, and we remind you to check out foundersfcu.com and learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. All right, let's get to some basketball. Recruiting coming up in a couple of minutes. USC coming off a win over Vanderbilt on Saturday, knocking off the Commodores in front of an enthusiastic crowd at the Colonial Life Arena, much better than for the Missouri game. Students still were not back, so that was a big void, but they had some members of the pep band back, and the rest of the folks who showed up did a nice job of creating a pretty decent atmosphere at the CLA. And if they can win a couple of more games and get back home, be facing Kentucky at home in a couple of weeks. Well, actually, a week from Tuesday. What's today? Today, Monday. Tomorrow? Yeah, a week from tomorrow, they've got Kentucky. Boy, a week from tomorrow has got a heck of a day for basketball in our state. USC and Kentucky at 7 at the CLA. Clemson and North Carolina. No, it's the other way around. Clemson, North Carolina at 7 in Chapel Hill. USC, Kentucky at 9
Correct.
in CLA.
Correct.
And so today, Frank met with the media.
He did, and he talked about how Alabama was a bit of a kryptonite for them last year, not only losing in the regular season, but also in the SEC tournament.
Our perimeter defense is going to be challenged like it hasn't been challenged all year. And the young man Petty's pretty good too. And then you combine the fact that Hall is played a lot of games and understands, Avery and Daniel Giddens. He's a fourth-year college player, McDonald All-American. And now you throw Key in there, who's coming off that foot injury, and he's got more days under his belt, more practices, more. They're by the end of the year, that team's going to be a major, major problem for a lot of people. It's but they're good. But Sexton's a problem. Sexton scores outside, inside, off the dribble, off the catch. Like I said, he's wired to go. He doesn't just kind of wait for the game. He goes and attacks the game, and he's a problem.
Is winning a game like you guys won Saturday a result of you reaching them, or does winning a game like you guys won help you reach this team more?
Winning's a lot better than the alternative every day of the week. It's, I've never understood people say, hey, you lost the game. Now you can teach them. Really? I used this reference when I was at the other school after a loss to Missouri. I had, I think you guys have heard me say this story again, but I'm into storytelling. So we're both top 10 in the country. It's the first Big 12 game of the year. We lose at Missouri on national television. We're up the whole game. We lose by 2. And the first question I mean, this guy really went to a real good journalism school. I don't know who it was because the place is 100 people in there. I got no. This question is legit. I'm telling you about the guy that was sitting in the arena watching this high-level basketball game, 2 top 10 teams in the country. He said to me, well, now that you lost, you think you can reach your team? I was like, really, bro? I'll come across the table and grab you. That's what I want to do. It's as a school teacher, if I use that analogy that you teach them when you fail, as a school teacher, then I should only teach when people fail an exam. The ones that get 96s, I shouldn't. I should leave them alone. I shouldn't teach them. You got to teach every day. You teach through winning, losing, whatever the experience you're dealing with. We're too young right now. I got no idea how they're going to handle all those experiences going into the next game. This is all new. I got too many guys I'm going through it for the first time, and first time with, that is, the leadership in our locker room. It's a first-time leadership. If we keep this team together, which is the goal, next year, our leadership will be twice as good. And everyone's been through it. So I have a better feel on how we're going to handle certain things. But I think we'll practice well today. I think we'll play well tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Yeah, Tuesday. I really do. It's my expectation. This team is fun to be around. It's frustrating, but it's fun, and so it's all good. These guys are willing to learn. They're receptive to learning, and that's kind of what makes it fun to be around.
Which I found to be a very poignant quote from him, just because of the fact that, again, it shows you where this team is and that he is reaching them. And no, Corn, I know you thought that I asked that question to him during that visit.
Had no such thought.
You literally pointed at me. He was like, "Was that you?" I'm like, "No, it was not me."
Well, to keep, I think Corn was right when he was talking about Jason Cudd. He came in and did some good things, and this is a guy in my mind. If he matures quick enough, he can do some of the dirty work that gets Chris Silva in foul trouble, setting picks, throwing an elbow when it needs to be, and blocking shots. And maybe that clears the way, as you say, for Silva to stay in the basketball game without getting that one or two cheap fouls that gets him pulled.
And I think, too, Evan Hinson provides that kind of intensity as well. And the fact that they were able to start him, take Frank coming off the bench, and Frank was able to have the kind of impact game without scoring that he had, I think it spells – they're going to have to win games ugly. They're going to have to grit games out and win games in the 60s and 70s. And that was the blueprint on Saturday, and that was what got them to victory.
Okay, let me give you some recruiting here before we hit the top of the hour break, catch you up on some things, the big news from over the weekend. Couple of things for South Carolina. First of all, defensive back Marlon Character, Northwest Mississippi Junior College, who was one of 4 USC commitments who did not sign in December, told us last night he will not be signing with the Gamecocks at all, said that the offer is no longer there. He committed in August with the understanding that he had to graduate in December and enroll in January. Couldn't get that done. And so South Carolina's moved on, and right now he has no offers. He, of course, committed to USC while in high school, then signed with Auburn. And, of course, Muschamp and Travaris Robinson were at Auburn at the time, though they left to come to USC before Character got there. And then he redshirted at Auburn, then transferred to the junior college. So he comes off the USC commitment list. Meantime, former Blythewood defensive back Chris Pam, who originally went to Presbyterian out of high school, played this last season at Georgia Military, said he will accept an offer from Muschamp to be a preferred walk-on and come in and play corner. He had 11 tackles, 1 interception, 3 passes broken up in 8 games this past season. And this could turn out to be one of those steals with a walk-on player who develops into a good player. He was in the Touchstone Energy North-South game as a high school senior and had a really good career at Blythewood. I'd keep an eye on that guy. Meantime, the next signing day, the February signing day, comes up on February 7th. Things are going to start rolling again with the dead period ending this week. As of right now, USC has no officials scheduled for this weekend. Clemson has 2, based on what the players have said. Leon O'Neal of Cypress Springs, Texas, DJ Brown of Washington, D.C., both defensive backs, have said they're going to visit Clemson this weekend. Brown is a Virginia commitment, picked up offers last week from Clemson and USC. He's got Cal on January 19th, and he plans to visit USC later in the month. Also, for this weekend, visits of interest, USC targets offensive lineman Dylan Wanham to Auburn, defensive lineman Rick Sandage to Georgia, defensive end Dennis Briggs to Louisville, and Clemson target receiver Justin Ross to Florida. Again, everything is tentative for this first weekend after the dead period. Briggs is scheduled for USC January 19th, Florida State the 26th. He also plans to visit Miami. Clemson target defensive back Brendan Radley Hiles of IMG Academy committed to Oklahoma during the Army game on Saturday. Blythewood product linebacker Hassan Belton committed to UTEP. He played this season at Butler Junior College. He was at USC in 2016 as a transfer from Western Carolina. USC offered a preferred walk-on spot to defensive lineman Noah Henderson of Marlboro County. Running back Michael Salahuddin of Washington, D.C. named a Final Four of Southern Cal, Pitt, North Carolina, and Syracuse. Clemson was on his list until signing Lynn J. Dixon. We'll be back.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Had a couple of more recruiting notes on the basketball side, of course. Jermaine Cousinard, USC target out of Montverde Prep, was offered today by Illinois. This is big for him because he's from East Chicago, Indiana. And, getting the offer from the big school close to home could certainly impact his thinking. Brad Underwood trying to take one away from Frank Martin. Of course, he took an official to USC last week. Tells us no movement towards a decision yet, at least not expecting anything this week. In 2019, small forward Christian Brown of Lower Richland was at Georgia Saturday for the Alabama game.
We're also 12 days away from the Zion decision. Decision 2018.
Yeah. Before we get back to phone calls, that is something that'll become a big story here in the state moving forward. I don't know where he's going. When Kentucky followers are saying Clemson, they're getting the word from their people that it might not be Kentucky. I mean, that seems to be the growing trend on the internet that it's going to be Clemson.
Well, I think people are resigned to the fact that it's going to be Clemson, and people are not understanding nationally why. And I think we've detailed the reasons why on this broadcast and on our air. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that so much of the national conversation is around some of the illegal benefits, especially from the Adidas schools. Not to say that he was necessarily provided by any, but that would turn him off to a school like Kansas. I think at Kentucky, a school he can kind of get lost in the shuffle. And, Clemson right now, Clemson's the hot girl in the bar right now. They're 10 wins in a row.
I'll throw this out there, and this is by no means an official piece of information, but a buddy of mine was at the beach ball where Spartanburg Day was playing, and Zion was there for a day signing autographs. He didn't play because of that.
Signing autographs?
He was signing autographs. They said the line was
17, 18 years old. He's signing autographs.
Where have you been?
That's so stupid.
Well, I mean, this is a guy that's got rap singers, exchanging comments with him on Twitter. But anyway, this buddy of mine was talking to some parents of players on the Spartanburg Day team. Of course, they were lamenting the fact that he wasn't there, even though they beat somebody pretty good in the tournament. But he said in the Zion, where's he going question came up. And these are just parents of budgets now. But he said that these folks told him they thought he was going to South Carolina.
Get out.
That's what I said.
See, now I was up in the upstate.
So I don't know. I mean, he hasn't given much indication about South Carolina since that one visit. But he hasn't been to Clemson that much either, except for the one visit unofficially. He took his official visits.
I mean, I had a similar situation, just kind of overhearing people. I was up at the famed barbecue place, the Smoking Pig, this weekend up in the upstate in Clemson.
There you go.
And across from a table with some big high dollar IPTAY people, and they're all talking about the same thing, and they're thinking he's coming there. So I mean, again, as everybody seems to think that he's going to their particular school, but the smart money right now is on Clemson for a lot of other reasons, just not necessarily involving the stuff that we talked about earlier.
And my feeling, wherever he goes, if it's in state, the coaching staff will not carry on any of the nonsense that Johnny Jones went through with Ben Simmons, where he destructed that team.
Well, and the other
before it was all over.
And the other thing too is that Clemson's in a situation right now where they have enough people coming back for their senior year that they could still be pretty good, and they've got enough spots available to where if he has somebody he wants to take with him, they got room.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. All right, 800-956-7266 is our phone number, and let's continue with your phone calls, your thoughts on tonight's national championship game, or anything else that we've been talking about here tonight. Alan in Spartanburg, how are you? Welcome into Sports Talk.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the call.
Yes, sir.
Me and some other Barstool analysts were pontificating this weekend about the Georgia-Alabama game and the pros and cons on recruiting for South Carolina, us being South Carolina fans. If Georgia wins the national championship. And I'm pulling for Georgia. I just think, I'm an SEC guy, so I'm all for our conference. I don't know which way to go on this thing. I said, well, Georgia hadn't had it in a while. I hate the fans, but I like their team. I'd like to see them get it just to kind of share the love around the conference. But the discussion was, well, if Georgia gets it, it's going to hurt us in recruiting. And I was like, well, they got a lot coming back. Would there be a spot on there for a 17-year-old hotshot to play next year, as opposed to him playing in the same conference, the same, the TV spots and all this other stuff, the same division of the same conference, or would it hurt us, generally speaking, them being national championship caliber? Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, most recruiting classes are put to bed now, so the result of this game is not going to so much impact the 2018 signing class. There's very little space left, and I think most kids have a pretty good idea of where they want to go. Now, down the road, it's always nice to be able to go into the 19 homes, the 20 homes, and flash that national championship ring. But Georgia, you're talking about, is this going to affect South Carolina in competition with Georgia head-to-head in recruiting? I mean, Georgia already has a bit of a recruiting advantage on South Carolina based on its reputation, its tradition, its footprint, being right there in Georgia, able to pretty much gobble up the top line players in Georgia. A few get away from time to time, but they pretty much get the best ones in the state of Georgia on a perennial basis. So, I would think that if you're a Gamecock fan, you probably – here's where the split is. If you're a Gamecock fan, you probably want Georgia to win because it makes your loss look a little bit better, and then you get the reigning national champion coming to your place next season. If you're a Clemson fan, you want Alabama to win because it makes your loss last week a little bit easier to take. You say, well, at least we lost to the national champions.
Any advantage gained by Georgia in recruiting is by work already been done. I don't think that they can do any more positive stuff even by winning this game. I think, like you said, any advantage gained is by work already done. But like you said, there is the extra little bit of juice that comes in week 2, having that national champion possibly come inside your building, and you get them inside your building with all the stuff in front of you.
And just in my mind, just in what we've seen over the last few years, because there's a lot of transplants going in the Atlanta area, it hurts you mostly if Georgia wins, if any, outside of the Atlanta area. Kids in the Atlanta area come from everywhere. So, yeah, Georgia winning will draw kids maybe born, raised in Atlanta, but there's so much football talent that has moved into Atlanta, you still can recruit the Atlanta area. In fact, I don't know there's a conference in the country, Corn, that doesn't recruit the greater Atlanta area.
Yeah, there's just so many schools inside the perimeter. You can just hop in your car in a day and have access to so many top-level players.
Well, every school in the conference has at least some sort of base in the state of Georgia and Atlanta proper. So, I mean, it does help to be able to recruit that area from the fact that you're sitting there only about an hour away in Athens. But at the same time, kids have already made up their mind, like you said.
Yes, and you got a built-in advantage with Atlanta because you got I-20. Couple of hours and a nickel or whatever, and you're in Columbia.
But again, it's not everybody wants to stay in states. People have different motivations. People want to go away. I mean, like the Channing Tindall situation. He probably didn't want to stay in the shadow of a college campus he grew up in front of. He wanted to go and branch out.
Jamias Williams, pretty much the same reason. He chose South Carolina. He could have gone to Georgia, but he wanted to get away from Athens, I guess, or get outside the state, whatever the case may be. It's worked out well for him because he's probably going to be now, if he stays for 4 years, he'll probably be a 3-year starter for South Carolina. He was basically a starter this year in nickel packages. I imagine he'll be a starter at corner unless his height becomes a problem for him in dealing with taller receivers.
Or that fantastic crop of defensive backs they brought in this recruiting class messes him up.
Okay, back in a moment.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
So you're mad I didn't bring you back anything from New Orleans. I promise you, I'll bring you back something from New York from the ACC tournament.
Gee, I can't wait. Can you bring me back a corned beef sandwich?
I bring back some cookies from Ferraris. How about that?
Well, you didn't bring me back any of those
beignets. They don't keep beignets. They don't keep, man. It's
put them on ice.
No,
I know you. Let me guess. I know you have a Yeti. I'm sure it's a very expensive Yeti.
I don't have a Yeti.
It's probably the first Yeti ever made.
I do not have a Yeti cooler. No, I do not have a Yeti cooler.
It's something about
That's a guy that spends $75 for a haircut. He doesn't have a Yeti.
I don't spend $75 for a haircut. I do not spend $75.
Unbelievable.
It's lower than that. I have been to the place where Yeti is headquartered though in Austin. They have a bar there.
I'm sure you have.
They have a bar there.
And is there really a Yeti? There is an abdominal snowman. There is a Yeti. Okay.
It's the Yeti cooler.
No, I'm just kidding.
they have a bar there, and they don't serve it by the tap. They serve it by cans out of the cooler, and they do it as a way to promote their cooler and to promote how good their coolers are.
That's good stuff.
It's a fantastic thing.
800-956-7266 is the number. Who do you like tonight, Georgia or Auburn? Is it going to be
Alabama?
Alabama. Sorry. Is it going to be a high score? No, I was just reading something here about Auburn.
Auburn people are liking the tailpipe right now because they have to watch one of their rivals win.
Is it going to be a high-scoring game?
No.
Is it going to be or the defense is going to rise up and dominate? Is Alabama going to shut down Georgia's running game?
What's the total?
And make Jake Fromm beat them with the pass? Or can Georgia keep Jalen Hurts? Pretty much, going back and looking at the Clemson game against Alabama, defensively, the Tigers did a really good job. What did Georgia have? Alabama have 260-something yards total?
Yeah, it was like 288. It was 3.2 yards a play.
Hurts passed for about 120 yards. They did a really good job. But just going back and looking at that thing, Alabama's defense just overwhelmed Clemson up front.
Right.
Like I said this earlier, their defense just played with such anger and with such physicality. I was very surprised. Mitch Hyatt, who's a terrific player, I saw him many times.
He whiffed.
Well, just standing there as Bryant's getting killed back there. He just missed his guys. Clemson ran a lot of plays. I say a lot. I don't know how many, where they didn't even block the defensive end. I guess they were trying to option him or trick him, but it didn't work because the defensive end kept rushing and either getting in Bryant's face or flushing him out of the pocket.
Well, the thing that Alabama, and again, this is something I talked with somebody who has watched Alabama all year, is that their defensive ends, basically on film, had a problem with going upfield. And so they thought that they would almost overrun Kelly Bryant in that regard. But the thing that they did in this game was different, was that they stayed home and they kept contained because of the fact that they wanted to keep guard against Kelly Bryant's running ability. And so not only when Kelly Bryant wasn't rushing away, basically the guys that he could maybe spin away from in ACC games, he couldn't do that in Alabama because those guys are just way too athletic. And the other part of this, too, that was not good is whenever Travis Etienne was in there, and we heard coaches talk about this over and over and over again with him, the reason why he wasn't an every down back for Clemson this year was because he was limited in his pass pro. And too many times he whiffed on a guy or didn't hit a guy. And whenever he was in there on pass protection, he could not keep Kelly Bryant from getting hit.
And I saw this being talked about on our Twitter feed, and that was when Dabo got on Kelly Bryant.
Right.
During, I think it was late in the first half.
It was after the pick six.
Okay.
After the pick six.
Was that late in the first half?
No, second half.
Okay.
Second half,
well, now, what I saw was Bryant reverted for a short time to his old self, and that was run before I pass.
Right.
There was a play called where he hardly gave the routes a chance to be run before he tucked and took off and didn't get very far. Then he comes to the sideline, and if I could read Dabo's lips, I think he was just telling him, hey, man, you're panicking. You got to stay in the pocket. You got to try and complete the pass plays. And he got on him very hard about that. I think if you go back and look, from that point forward, he stayed in the pocket, and he took some shots. He tried to get the passing game going. He ran when necessary or when it was pre-called. Otherwise, he tried to stay in there after that and complete passes.
And on the pick six, it looked like he had at the last minute to readjust his launch point because a hand was coming up. And I think that took a little juice off the throw, and that cost him as well.
Wasn't that a tip pass? Didn't it?
It was
tipped.
It was tipped because
by a defender.
By a defender tipped up in the air.
That's because he couldn't fire it because he had to adjust the release point at the last second.
And here's the thing: Deion Kane did not help him in that game, and
had a couple of drops,
and he couldn't find Hunter Renfrow to save his life until the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
that was because he was double covered. And again, props to Alabama for recognizing that. They wanted anybody else on the team to beat him, and we didn't see T. Higgins, but for that one play in the first half where they went long to him, and there was a play that Clemson fans thought there was a pass interference on that, and then he ended up getting injured for the rest of the game.
Again, the preparation time is that you saw that Nick Saban took away everything Clemson wanted to do. What are they least comfortable in doing? Let them do that. And they took away the Linus blanket. Part of the
problem was they tried to do what they've done all year, and Nick Saban prepared for that.
Bingo.
The thing that Alabama did that Clemson didn't do was that they showed a different look, and they showed different things than what they were able to do on film. And because of that, Alabama, while they had limited success on offense, made more plays than Clemson did offensively when they needed to, and that got them into the end zone.
And when Alabama knew that Clemson was limited offensively, they went vanilla. They went vanilla and went right at them. And said, look, we don't have to do anything exotic.
The play they scored the touchdown on with Deron Payne, that shows ingenuity. Did you see anything from Clemson's side that showed any kind of offensive ingenuity other than the halfback pass that they threw when the game was basically over?
No, exactly right. So the question for Clemson is, how long does this loss linger with them? How does it affect their mindset moving forward? We saw from Alabama and heard from their players how the loss to Clemson last year in the championship game affected them. It gave them extra motivation. It gave them really the anger to get through the season and get back to Clemson, which is what they were pointing towards all the way through the season. They wanted to get to the semifinals and a chance to the championship regardless of the opponent. It was extra sweeter for them to have the chance for revenge against Clemson. How will Clemson, number one, the performance by Kelly Bryant, does that create doubt in people's minds about him moving forward, especially with Trevor Lawrence coming onto the scene now here in January? And number two, the shortcomings that Clemson's offense had against a really good Alabama defense, obviously, are those things that were just a one-game issue that you don't have to really be too concerned about, or do they have to go back and look at some things and change things up for next season?
I hate to create this parallel, but you talked about Darion Kendrick being limited in DeCarrion Joyner being limited in the Shrine Bowl, and people who wanted him maybe to be the heir apparent to Bentley a lot sooner than he might have been prepared for.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Lawrence didn't exactly set the world on fire in the Army All-American game either. So for those who think that Lawrence is going to walk in on day one and supplant Kelly Bryant, I don't think that necessarily is something you can expect. And number two, I don't know if this Clemson team can be fueled by motivation just because of what is going on inside their own conference. You got to worry about what is in front of you. You can't worry about what Alabama is doing. I think Alabama lived in a bit of a different scenario because of where they were in relation to the other teams in their division. The difference between them and Clemson is that the rest of the ACC Atlantic is on the rise, is getting better. You have a school like Miami who made a significant run this year, and you have other schools inside that division that can possibly beat up or rise up and beat you. So in my mind, if you're Clemson, you are focused on anything you can do to get back to the level that you were at this past year. You can't be worried about Alabama.
You know, I worry about Clemson from this standpoint if I'm a coach, and that is depending on who comes back. And a lot has to do with that defensive line. Say they return. Florida State is breaking in a new coaching staff. And I know Florida State has a lot of athletes, but still there's a learning curve there. I don't see anybody in front of Clemson in their division next year. And then they have to be motivated. Look, we're playing to a level. We're not playing to the level of this conference right now because they're going to get better. We better play to our level because we want to get back to the Final Four and win a championship.
You can't take your eyes off of what's in front of you and try to look too far down the road.
I can promise you with Willie Taggart and a healthy DeAndre Francois and Jacques Patrick, that Florida State's going to be pretty good on offense next year. Be right back. a shot of South Carolina's own Christian Miller. Number 47. Somewhere in there is his proud papa, the pastor of Payne, I'm sure.
We were talking about haircuts earlier. That guy cuts his own hair.
Mm-hmm.
Why is Corey not giving him any money to get a haircut?
Good question. Good question.
Why can't guy get a haircut?
Speaking of that, this event, this national championship, always brings out the loudest complainers about the current system for college football players and the fact that they don't get paid a big amount of money. They're getting some now, but not anything equivalent to what the schools are making or what the contracts are. And so, there were some if you read some of the columns, national columns over the last couple of days, some strong opinions about all the money being made by the NCAA / the universities and the players getting an education, but not getting anything else for their image or for their efforts and that sort of thing. Some very compelling arguments that I read. And, I'm sort of starting to come around to the point where
really
I am.
Get out.
Well,
tell me more, Ghost Rider.
Well, I'm just thinking here. I've always believed that a college education paid for is a valuable thing.
Yeah.
And that can be worth, if you stay for 4 years, that can be worth a couple of $100,000. I
don't think anyone's arguing that.
To somebody. But as this particular writer that I read was expressing his opinion that that's not even close to what the players should be earning based on what the schools are making and what the conferences are making with their television packages and everything else, and the endorsements. He was just suggesting that you just make it a free market thing and let the best players on the teams get their own endorsements and just let it roll that way. If you happen to be, let's say, for example, if you happen to be Jake Bentley and there's a car dealership in Columbia that wants you to pay you $10,000 a year to do commercials for them, you should be allowed to do that.
I've been saying this for years, and you could even regulate it to the point where, like, this particular this particular service, if you will, has this dollar amount next to it. You can do things for public appearances. You can do things for car dealerships. You can do things for, endorsements of any kind. You could, if you really need it to be regulated, you could regulate it.
Mm-hmm.
That's been proven by the American government, I think, but for over time. I'm not saying that necessarily is the best option, but it's better than what they have now. There's nothing in my mind, and there's nothing that is logical to me that sits there and says this guy can't go out and make money off his likeness. It has nothing to do with amateur status. It does not jeopardize amateur status. It makes the playing field level for everybody, and it allows guys to be able to make money because of the fact that they are doing something for a university that has a monetary value.
And in this day and age of creativity in advertising, people will say, well, you got the glamour positions, wide receivers or whatever, but they still can have commercials for the big horses.
Mm-hmm.
They can still make money.
Sure.
Defensive linemen. You see those two big horses at Clemson,
but then
defensive tackle.
But then again, if you open up this, you got to remember the other factors that come in with being an employee. There's taxes to be considered.
Mm-hmm.
I guess things can then get into, how much of an employee related situation will it be? Will there be things related to insurance claim? I know they have insurance now, to protect them from injury and things of that nature. But if you're going to turn them into employees, then just how deep is it going to become from that standpoint?
Well, do you turn them into employees or make them free agents to get their own deals outside of what the university is doing?
It has nothing to do with the university.
That's
if you're
what I'm
going
saying.
out and making your own money off your likeness, you're basically treating yourself like your own company.
So then now do we allow college players to have their own agents to go out and make these deals for them?
Sure.
Then they've got to pay their agent what they make for them. It can become awfully complicated. It's a slippery slope. I understand the cry that these guys, and they probably do deserve a lot more than what they're getting, because they are not students first and foremost.
I mean,
when you're in college, you're a football player. The demands on major college football players from the moment they get there. Now in January, you can't even enjoy 4 years in high school anymore. The pressure to finish and get to college and get your work underway, both academically and athletically, is growing. And it doesn't help now with this early signing period to push people towards graduating early. It cost South Carolina a cornerback candidate in Marlon Character because, they said you got to get out in December so you can be here for spring ball and all that, or we're not going to take you. He couldn't get it done, so he's come off the commitment list.
This is before they would start to give the guys a stipend. But guys I went to school with who were athletes, whether it was on the football team or the basketball team, they basically had enough to basically fend for themselves. Sometimes they didn't even have that. They didn't have money to take girls on dates. They didn't have money to go out and have any discretionary income. When you're in school, you have the opportunity to get a job. They don't have the opportunity to do that kind of stuff. So you're a prisoner. Mm-hmm. You have to basically, I don't want to make it sound like it's bad. They're obviously given a bunch of stuff like clothes and a training table and stuff like that. But it's football and school, man.
Mm-hmm. And of course, depending on what position you play, the wardrobe you came in with, and they're making you bigger and stronger, doesn't fit anymore. Now you need some more new clothes. But
got to go to the outlets.
But you think about some of these gifted students who have either musical talent or are in research early in their academic careers, which they're getting paid for. They kind of have to deal with a juggling act as well. So it's not only the talents on the football field, but in academia, some of these people are being paid for what they do during their seasons of study.
All right, let's go to Alan in Florence. Next up here on Sports Talk. Hello, Alan.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
I know that the NASCAR Hall of Fame inductees were announced Friday. I cannot believe that Howard Hughes is among the inductees, though.
The NASCAR, run that by me again. The NASCAR Hall of Fame
inductees for this year were announced Friday. Jeff Gordon and Howard Hughes were both inducted. Inducted with five other people. I don't understand why Howard Hughes is in the group. Do you?
How you like Howard Hughes, the billionaire you're talking about?
Yes.
No, I don't.
The only thing
the five men are Red Byron, Ray Ebrenham, Ron Hornaday, Ken Squire, and Robert Yates. That's the class of 2018.
No, it's about 2019. Whatever is taking place down in Daytona in March. That's the one I'm talking about.
It says he set numerous records and built some of the world's most advanced planes.
I don't know. They've named the NASCAR Hall of Fame for 2019 yet.
This is the class of 2018. This came out on the 5th here.
I don't see anything about the 2018 class has already been announced, and that's
okay. Well, I was on ESPN.com and I read that and I thought, what in the world is he doing in there?
I'm seeing a story here. Jeff Gordon will remain eligible for the 2019 NASCAR. See, the 2018 class has already been done. They haven't named the 2019 class yet.
I thought
that was what was announced Friday.
This was the class of this upcoming year. This year,
2018.
Yes.
There's no Howard Hughes there.
It is. It says it right here. I'm reading an article.
2018?
Yes.
NASCAR Hall of Fame.
Yeah. The Motorsports Hall of Fame.
Well, that's different.
Motorsports Hall of Fame of America.
Okay, so you're talking about the Motorsports Hall of Fame, not the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
That's the one I'm talking. Yeah.
Okay.
Now we know because he did a lot of research in speed, in automotive, and aeronautics. So that's probably why he's in the Motorsports Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. I didn't realize that they had named Howard Hughes to the Motorsports Hall of Fame. The induction ceremony, if you want to be there, is March 12 and 13.
I'm on my way right now.
Be right back.
7 seconds to go in the wild card playoff game, and it comes down to this. 4th down, 23 from the 34 of the Saints. Receivers spaced out left and right. Saints bring 5. Newton in trouble. Hit and taken down.
And that's the game.
The Saints will win the game.
And that's your game.
Eugene, thank you for that. That's the game. That's the season. Always sad, Mick, always sad when we get to this point where it's the last Mick Mixon visits of the year. Kind of thought you might pull it out yesterday on that last drive, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, same here, Corn, and it's a melancholy feeling all day today at Bank of America Stadium. The players got in for their physicals at around 8, and they kind of lingered. I really was interested to see the building can empty out quickly this time of year when there's a loss. But this team kind of lingered around, and a lot of guys just sort of stayed and visited and swapped numbers, signed jerseys for each other, helmets. And this team, I think, will be remembered, hopefully, for its toughness, its resiliency, its success in close games. But the Saints were just too clean, too efficient yesterday with Drew Brees at the controls for the Panthers to fall behind like that and pull it out.
Boy, the Times-Picayune in their headline today, I don't know if you saw it, pretty rude toward the Panthers. You see it?
The one that said there's a new owner for the Panthers and the Saints?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's clever, but it hurts a little bit. But, to their credit, I mean, they won. There wasn't any smoke and mirrors and hocus pocus. I mean, they lined up and took it from the Panthers 3 straight. You drive yourself crazy in football, Corn, as you guys know, with if Kalen Clay, if fun, just if the officials, it drives you crazy. But I think you just have to trust in the process and that the breaks, the calls, everything evens out in the end.
I mean, there's something to familiarity, Mick, and I know that this can work both ways. But what is it that they know about the Panthers that I guess y'all can't overcome, or is there something about the Saints that you all can't overcome there?
TV commentators were saying this, and I'm only bringing it up because I agree it's not something that we haven't harped on it on the radio side. We've tried to be honest about it. And I've heard that sort of one of the storylines is that the Saints had faster skill players in the secondary and at receiver than the Panthers did, and that the Panthers need to get some help for Cam Newton offensively. It's not the Panthers' fault. I mean, we wanted fast players, and we've had them. Hurt. And then Damiere Byrd got hurt. The Byrd injury was big because his star was really streaking across the sky, and he's got that 4.25, 4.28, 40 speed that we need. And then in the back, I think that'll be something that'll need to be addressed by the Panthers. A little more foot speed, maybe get a little younger at safety, and some depth at corner as well.
Yeah, and it looks like, especially on special teams, Byrd would have been a tremendous commodity for you guys. But Mick, I got to go back to the beginning, because all I could think about as Carolina was trying to march that last drive, what happened to Gano on the chip shot field goal to begin the game? Because I said this could have been the drive for the winning field goal. Did he explain what happened to him? Because he is so automatic that it was just shocking to see him miss that first field goal.
And there was, and I think he didn't, I don't really know, but it looked maybe like he got a little deep into it, like his plant foot got a little deep, and then he pushed it off to the side. Even the greats, the great golfers, the 2.5-foot putts, the 2-footers that you think you should make, most of them go in, but they don't all. And then Gano redeemed himself with the 58-yarder, that long bomb from distance. So there's a ton of calls. I mean, a ton of plays. What if Mike Adams had known? What if he'd had the situational awareness to remember that it's 4th down and he should not intercept that prayer Brees heaved up? That's 16 yards of field position.
Right.
If you extrapolate that out, that could have been the Panthers would have been on the 4-yard line instead of the 21.
Mick,
20, around in there.
It's going to be, I mean, the Panthers are going to be one of the most watched teams in the offseason here because of everything going on. What do you see happening here in the next few months with this franchise?
Good question, Corn. I don't know. I'd love to get your wisdom on it too. I think that this process is going to take a while. I think that that it might be. It might, by the time you vet these different, I think a lot of people are going to emerge that will want to purchase the team. And so two things have to happen. One is Mr. Richardson has to approve of who he wants to buy it. And then the NFL, 24 or 32 owners have to give thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from owner, what do you think is the biggest need on the team right now?
Well, I think what we talked about earlier, ever since I've been with the Panthers, I came to work here in April of 2005. Ever since Mike Minter retired at safety, we've not really had, it's been a revolving door at safety. Tremendous litany, a run of Nay Sally and Charles Godfrey and Mike Mitchell and Marlon McCree and just a bunch of different guys. Some have been good players and some have been, but they've been, in the case of McCree and Mitchell, 1 year and done. They got paid more money elsewhere. In other cases, trying to find the right fit. So I'd say more and maybe some more juice on offense.
I mean, look, talk about ownership. I think possibly you and Eugene should go in. Nothing wrong with having, play-by-play and colorless guys up in the booth own the team as well. I think the two of you working together could do a great job of directing this franchise in the future.
Would there be a rent to own?
Well, I mean,
like
look,
furniture.
You're not going to Aaron's.
You're a highly paid, former Tar Heel announcer, now Panther announcer, and then Eugene's got all that NFL money to fall back on. I think between the two of you, you can come up with a very good bid.
I'm wealthy, but not in a way that has anything to do with money.
Wow!
But
you could take the band and do pregame concerts and sell tickets to that and all that kind of good stuff.
Oh gosh, I know. I think what we ought to do is consider putting a roof, because Felix Sabates, one of the possible owners, a Cuban-born auto magnate here in Charlotte area, he's talked about building a new stadium with a roof on it. And I wonder how much it would cost to put a roof over an existing stadium.
Trying to do that. They were trying to do that to Arrowhead a couple of years ago.
They almost did it. I mean, it's the Miami Stadium has almost a complete roof. They do have the hole in the middle.
They have the seats covered, but not the field.
Right, not the field.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Do you see, Mick, any guys getting the head coaching job? Any coaching defections coming up?
One coach is meeting with the Giants, I believe. Right, Mick?
Steve Wilkes, a Charlotte native, played, I think, at West Charlotte. He's a natural-born leader, defensive coordinator. Wouldn't be shocked at all to see him get a headshot. He's going to talk, I think, to Arizona as well. A lot of guys on this staff. Eric Washington can run one day on the offensive side. Mike Shula, I think, if it was right, I think he might consider it, but it'd have to be the right situation. So that's what you want. I mean, it's a good problem to have, right, with the branches of the Ron Rivera coaching tree starting to bear some fruit.
I was only there once in December. They don't need a new stadium, do they, Mick?
I wouldn't think so, but, people talk and say things. What I was thinking, I was going to finish my thought, was that if you put a roof over it, you could I was thinking you put a ring of condominiums. Live there. Charge $5-10 million a piece.
So there you go. Now you're starting to.
I mean, we got to think creatively.
You're starting to think like an owner. I'm telling you, I'm gonna float it out there. Mick Mixon, one of the potential owners of the Panthers.
Yeah, they got that big condominium over there at the racetrack.
And then we can call the stadium the Stick. We'll call the stadium the Stick.
Yeah, not Candlestick, but just the Stick.
Just the Stick. The Stick for the Mick. Hey, thank you so much for being with us throughout the season. It's been a long, hard season. I know you're wore out, and we thank you for being with us on Monday nights throughout. It's a great bonus for us. We really appreciate you.
You guys are a joy. I love you, appreciate you, and I'll come see you this spring.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Give us a holler. No, I'll come see you.
Sounds good, Corn.
All right, man. Take care. All right, voice of the Panthers, Mick Mixon, wrapping up with us on this Monday night. Enjoy the national championship game.
Sure.
We'll see what happens. There's another one for Bama or one for Georgia. We'll see. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.